Welcome to Season 3 of the Weekly Fellowship Podcast. I'm Coach Audye.
And I'm Coach Regan.
We're here with you weekly to anchor and empower women to break cycles,
build resilience,
and rediscover self-worth
through practical insights,
faith-based encouragement,
and a supportive community. Welcome back, everybody. I'm just rolling into town and I'm ready to start visiting with Audye Gonzalez, as we usually do, but we also have a fun guest here today, Stefania Bigi. Stefania, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to be here. Thank you, Regan. Thank you, Audye. I am a health and wellness coach. I have a background as a medical doctor, but I've been working from Europe. So living in the US in the last about 10 years, I've been trying to find other ways to work in the medical field. And as a health and wellness coach, I really love to kind of approach the I like to approach the medical aspect from a preventative point of view, and so I love to work with women. And I love to work with balancing their hormones and making them feel more energized and more in tune with their bodies through lifestyle and nutrition changes. And I will say that I do have a particular love and care for women that are struggling with infertility, where I help them onto the two big problems that I believe they're facing. And one is, of course, to achieve a pregnancy. And there I help them with the nutrition and lifestyle changes that will help optimize their reproductive health. And then I help them find meaning and purpose in the present. So find how to express their motherhood while they're waiting to hopefully achieve a pregnancy.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We're really glad you're here. We're really glad you're here. So kind of interesting timing since Audye and I have both just recently given birth. And I think this is going to be a great conversation because, I had a eight-year gap between my children with health issues. And we've experienced, everybody here has experienced everything except for menopause. And so we're going to have a little bit of a fun conversation looking to the future and looking to the past and kind of looking at our present as well. But first, let's get started with our humble pie highlight. So this is our little part where we share, Stefania, something that just humbled us this week, whether it was our own behavior or effort that completely failed or whatever it is. Audye, would you like to start?
would love to start. I think it's so funny because, like you said, the timing with giving birth and everything. Mine is hormone related. My humble pie highlight is hormone related, and it's not postpartum depression. It's not postpartum anxiety. It's postpartum. I don't know what's going on with my skin.
Oh.
You guys can't see, and I'm not going to get any closer to the camera. I don't know what has happened, but this lower half of my face is I've broken out. I'm raw. It feels, the texture is weird. And it was so funny before I put makeup on. I was just looking again. I'm not getting any closer to the camera. Just avoid scarring you guys. But I was just like, oh my goodness, what's happening? Yeah, we're at the 2-week postpartum point. So like we're having a hormone shift, and that's the first big hormone shift. And I was just like, you know what? Here we are. This is part of it. This is natural. This is normal. And I was like, what timing for a humble pie highlight for um our women's reproductive health episode.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to go next then. Stefania, I was going to let you go next, but I'm going next because I'm right behind her. I just had our first little spring break vacation, and I don't fit into any of my clothes. I don't even fit into stretchy swimsuits. All the pictures that I got back, I still have this lovely stomach from giving birth to an almost 12-pound baby. And I'm like, I'm good. I love my body. I love my baby. And I'm taking all the steps to feel happy in my skin again. But it's just hard being here at this 3-month mark. Like, I don't fit into
It
my
is.
pants. So that's mine too. So Stefania, what's
Oh
something that humbled
gosh.
you this week?
Oh, mine was, I think, an episode I had being out. We also had spring break, and I was I decided one day to take my kids ice skating. They love it. And so I was able to leave the little one that is 2 years old with a lady at daycare. So I was taking my three older kids, and I was all excited because I have fun too. And it was fun. Well, fun. It was humbling towards the end of our hour ice skating. My daughter came towards me. She's 9 years old. She came towards me on her skates, and she was telling me, hold like with her hand, wanting to hold my hand, and she was saying, "We will never let go." And at that moment, we both fell face down with our whole bodies.
No.
That was so painful. And the humbling part, because that happens, no problem. But the humbling part was that being there on the ice, I felt my body so heavy. Like I was thinking,
Oh,
I wish I had 20 years less because I was having a hard time getting up. My body for 2 days was all sore on the right side. And I was thinking,
Oh.
okay, this happens when you're a little older. I'm past 40. I'm thinking, okay, I have to think that I can still have fun, but I have to pay a little bit more attention to what I'm doing. So it was very humbling to me, for me.
oh,
Yeah.
face down, Stefania. That's a new,
That's
there's one thing to
tough.
smack on your bum, but face down is like,
No, it was, yeah, and I hit my shoulder and I easily have dislocations of the shoulders. So I was so scared, and I think it was this far from happening. So yeah.
oh, well,
Anyways,
we're glad you're here.
yeah, I'm here. I'm here. It doesn't show on my face, so perfect.
Dude, I don't know. Thank you, Holy Spirit, because those humble pie highlights feel just so perfect for this conversation, where we're
They
going
really
in.
do.
They so do. In our community, the Rising Tide Fellowship, we our first year was kind of our testing year to see like what do people need, where are our gifts, where is God calling us to build different landing spaces for women where we can come together, be filled up, and then sent forth. And one of the things I said was this first year, this community is going to change like as often as a woman's body changes. And that is kind of what that's going to be our overarching kind of discussion today is this as women, we have these changes. I'm right currently I'm kind of quasi coaching a young girl, 12, and she is looking forward to starting her cycle, and she's so excited but nervous, and like that's all she's like obsessed with it right now. You know, her sweet little brain is like 100% focused on this big thing that's going to happen to me, and I'm going to become a woman. And it's like this big rite of passage. And then we move into these years of fertility, and we have a lot of feelings around before we start the fertile years, and then the perimenopause, menopausal years. And we're just going to kind of look and have this big meta conversation about how we can support those years, but also just how we can mentally kind of reframe some of the way we've been thinking about and feeling about these this this big topic of our women's health, right? So let's kind of start with the first section of our youth. Do one of you guys want to share kind of your how it was for you when you were starting that early, like I've just got my period and I'm starting this world of being a woman in my physical body.
Yeah, I can share. It was kind of awful. It was kind of awful. I started very early. Um, I started in public. I like there's so many layers to it. And I remember I think it's so interesting because now I feel like I'm the complete opposite of like I'm over here like let's talk about our cycle. I am very much more vocal and let's communicate about the things that we need to communicate about. And back then when I was, which I mean like it's been almost 20 years. Wow. Wow. It's almost been 20 years. Wow, having a realization on good grief,
Live.
almost 20 years. Sorry. I'm like, wow, that's so long ago. Um, almost 20 years of having a cycle, which is absolutely crazy, but just I remember it being such a burden it was absolutely a burden. Like, I love hearing about this 12-year-old girl and how she's excited and like this is part of my womanhood and whatnot. And for me, it was always like, it was incredibly painful from the very beginning. Come to find out, I have PCOS, and that's something I struggled with the entire time. Um, and I didn't put that into remission until the last couple of years, which has been interesting. But it was so burdensome. Like, I didn't have that positive mindset about like this is what makes me a woman, or this is something that like we talk about like rite of passage, right? And like moving forward in life. And I did not have that experience at all, but I'm totally curating that for my girls. And I'm totally trying to normalize that in like my circle, to the point where I'm like maybe I shouldn't, maybe this is too much information. It's like, no, no, no. Like I can have this conversation without being like overly cryptic. Like these are good things to talk about. Um and so yeah, for me, my experience was just it was negative. It was negative. Um but I feel like I've been able to harvest from that, and just like you, again, imagine being 12 years old and excited about it. That's awesome. That's what I want for my girls.
Yeah, she has a very good mom who normalizes it, talks about it, and again looks at like her dad takes her brothers on these trips when they're at a certain age. They go on these camping trips, and it's like kind of this rite of passage into manhood. But for the women in their family, they're like, you have a physical expression. Your body shows that you've become a woman. You've moved into
Yeah.
womanhood. It's this first step of womanhood, and it's a big deal. Stefania, do you want to add anything about your experiences or just thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I would just add that for me it was, I think, like for this little girl, just like knowing that something was happening. I kind of knew how it was going to happen, and when it happened, I was excited. I was excited and felt like I had become like more complete, that I could be at an adult level, that I could be considered more, you know. I knew I was becoming a woman, and that was giving me pride and was giving me more self-confidence. And I do remember though that um, one day we were talking to a teacher in middle school. She was very open to listening to us, and we were, I think me and a few other friends were kind of complaining of how we didn't look as nice. Like there were things that were off in our body. That's a transition, right, between being a girl and a woman. And she looked at us and she said, "It's because you're blooming." And I thought that was such a nice way of putting this. It's true. Like, this is a transition into becoming a beautiful flower, a beautiful human being, at in a way that you're complete, because something is missing until you have also that aspect of it.
That's beautiful. And
So,
I want to, because my brain is a little foggy because I've got that lovely I'm pumping in my minerals to help my my postpartum brain fog right now. I don't want to forget this moment, and because you guys help me when we get to the next part, because this is we're talking about this transition into womanhood, and it's so true. We're blooming into this beautiful flower. But when in a minute, I want to make sure that we address that next transition, that what happens when it's time for fertility to be over. Well, what are we blooming into? What is happening? And spiritually, physically, emotionally, because if we're not careful, what it feels like is that it's time for us to die. It's like, oh, we've shriveled up. We've Okay, we bloomed and now we're dead, And
yeah,
so I just like we have all of this beautiful language to get to fertility, and we don't really have beautiful language post fertility. And that's kind of I don't want us to forget this connecting piece here in a minute, if y'all will help me with that.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So moving into first, let's do this. Where in that first early years of fertility of having your cycle, where did you notice that you had some shame popping up either for you or for friends, for siblings, for maybe you saw it in your mom, the way she was talking about her own health or body or anything. Where was there any kind of emotion, but possibly shame?
Mine was like immediate. Like I think it was before even before it even began. I remember it wasn't something that we talked about. Like if we were to see like a pad or a tampon underneath the sink, like I remember asking, like, what's that for? And it was like a very like hush hush conversation. Like we didn't want my brother around. Like we didn't like this wasn't a conversation that we had. And it's so interesting because I felt very ashamed of it. And then starting early, I was the first one. I started at 9 years old. And that's incredibly early, incredibly early. Um, and again, come to find out, PCOS, undiagnosed, Hashimoto's, all these other things. Like there were health reasons as to why that happened, right? But hearing my husband's experience of growing up with like a household full of girls, it was very different. Like whenever I had met him, I was like, "Oh, like here's another man I'm gonna have to educate on how to like what a period is." And he was just like, "Oh yeah, no, like this is actually really normal for me." And so seeing that comparison, I didn't really start to unshame that until much, much later in life, like over the last like 7 or 8 years. And it took a long time to get there. But I would say that very first time would have been maybe I was like 7 or 8, like very early, um, because it just wasn't something that we talked about.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. That was very early, Audie, and I bet
Yeah,
like sometimes I think you, at that age, I have a 9 years old girl. I'm thinking she's still a little girl. Like I can still see her innocence as a girl. That might
yeah,
change soon, but not now. So I guess like implementing like a such a thing, making it your own, understanding what it means for you, that must be a challenge at that age.
yeah. It definitely was starting so early. Again, it's so looking back in hindsight, like hindsight's 2020. Like we can see the full picture. We can see like wow, like there's health problems that are underneath here. Like there's mental health things that are going on, like in your whole entire situation. Um, and so I can see how like going back, I would if one of my girls were to start that early, I would take a very different approach. But yeah, no, starting off, it was like I am not a woman. I'm not even double digits yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's that whole this is just it was very much like this is something that's happening to me. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have no control over this. That's the way it felt, and that's the way it continued again up until I would only say the last when did it I got a diagnosis for Hashimoto's and PCOS 4 years ago. So that continued for like 15, close to 15 years. Um, of this is happening to me. And so I've had a lot of time in the last 4 years to identify what I want the rest of that to look like. Like I love that we're starting this conversation with the very beginning, and I love that we're also going to go into menopause because I've been able to design like my childbearing years, and that's been so incredibly helpful and great to to frame. And so again, I'm excited about I can't wait to plan my menopause. This is going to
Right?
be
I know.
great, you guys.
I know it sounds so silly, but I think this is the first time for so many of us that we see that menopause is actually being studied and talked about. And
Yeah.
it's like it's been this missing piece for so long. Women, I know that Gen X and millennials are like, what is this perimenopause stuff and what is happening and why aren't doctors talking about it? Well, it's like it surprised us. It's almost like, the joke about how you get your period every month and it's a surprise because you weren't charting or you weren't paying attention to it or whatever it was. And that's how menopause is for it's like every woman in our culture is like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this is what was coming. And so just to start looking at the overall picture, it's like, are we going to be surprised that we die one day, or do we know that death is at the end of life? Like, so let's just design. Let's design a little bit in God's order, and but He gives us free will to really start looking and designing what we want this to look like. Um, I do want to ask though, Audie, you said you would reframe what you would do, or you would respond very differently if you have a daughter who starts early. And with Stefania here and with you here, what can our listeners do differently if they know someone who starts early, or just really to help support that young woman's mind who's about to start or who just started or who's starting early, whatever it is, what would you guys say for a mother or grandmother who's helping support someone at that age?
My situation is an outlier situation. Like mine was, there's what's called adverse childhood experiences that are very much connected to like childhood trauma and that type of thing. And there was actually an Australian study done that found that 70% of women with PCOS had at least experienced 2 to 3 adverse childhood experiences. So mine being an outlier, that's more of like a trauma type situation, and that can cause you to start incredibly early. It can cause you to develop PCOS, Hashimoto's, like thyroid issues, etc. Um, so but again, this is I'm an outlier situation. But that's something to be wary of as a parent. Like again, if my children were to start early, sometimes they can say that's genetics. Stefania, I don't know if that's actually genetics. That's what I was told. It's like, oh, it's just like we have no idea, and you can just start whenever. Sometimes it's genetics. And for
There,
me, I don't think it. Oh, go ahead, Stefania.
no,
I'm
just
sorry.
saying there can be a familiarity, like in the same family, women may have similar patterns in their cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be.
Um, yeah, and so I would say like that was like it would be a big red flag for me to check my parenting. And to check like how I'm showing up to the kid and to the kids and how they're basically just like really checking in on their environment in the sense of like, are they being bullied? Are they being emotionally neglected by myself or their father? Like, is there some type of like other abuse that's happening from another situation? Like, again, outlier situation, but that would be my advice. Because that's what I needed. I
Yeah,
needed that check in.
thank
What
you.
about you, Stefania?
Yeah. Oh, as I'm listening to your story and thinking of like very young girls, I think first thing, above everything, I would show a lot of empathy and closeness because again, like it's a big thing happening to a little girl. So, and it's not easy to understand. Like at an intellectual level, I can explain you, but do you feel it in your heart that that's okay? Probably not at that age. But showing a lot of empathy, that you're supported, I feel that that can help them go through, like walk through, uh, and learn how to manage um, this new thing that is happening to them. And together with that, I think that I would definitely try to help them understand how this is something that in time is a will show as a gift of God. Like it's not something that makes you less of a person or that is in your way, but it is something that in time will show how much you can give because of the person you are and you're becoming. I think I would try to go in that direction. Um, yeah, with a lot of,
That's really
again, a
beautiful.
lot of empathy.
I
And
that's really beautiful. I
yeah,
see a connection there with our later conversation too. Like there's so much waiting. Like you might start at 12, but you're not going to have a baby until, I don't know, many years later.
yeah,
And if at all, right? And it's just interesting. There's a lot of waiting. There's this beautiful gift that in time can bear God's fruit. And I wonder how we can look at that with that long perimenopause journey
yeah.
of it's waiting. It's a waiting game, and I think a lot of us would just like to just skip right over that.
But yeah, Reagan, I love that you say this because when I was thinking about this talk, I was thinking, okay, fertility, is it something that is it something we use? Or again, is it a gift? And when you see it as a gift, those waiting years, they have a meaning. They are very meaningful because it's like during those years you're kind of, or I mean, that's how I would say ideally should be. Those are the years where you're learning uh, how you are as a woman, what you bring to the world as a woman. And so that gift of fertility is a gift to you and is your gift to people, not as a gift in terms of giving life, biological life, but it is an expression of our um, likeness, being made in the likeness of God, our ability to give life. So our ability to love, our ability to be generous, to be sensitive, and that I think is when you see the gift of fertility this way, I think those years are not like useless years where, you're not producing.
Hmm.
Does it make sense?
It does, but I think that I almost want you to expand on that a little bit. Like, because I hear you're saying that um, it's a gift to me. My fertility is a gift to me, even if I never have children. It's a gift to the world. How?
I would say that expresses the way women are seen by God, um, meaning that we are made in a way that makes us able to bring life to the world. And that physical aspect that makes a woman physically, physiologically, has to be somewhat the uh, understood as our vocation as women, meaning who am I as a woman? I would say that I would challenge anyone that is listening to us to kind of think if we as a woman kind of suppress our ability to love, our ability to be welcoming, our ability to be close to people, to make things work around us in the household or even in the relationships with our friends, do we feel um, do we feel happy, fulfilled, um, that we are being who we are meant to be? And I believe that this is what our body is telling us, like physically showing how spiritually uh, we want to be for our own happiness and for the happiness of those around us.
Hmm. I've heard it said many, many years ago, and it always stuck with me that women physically make room in their bodies, but we spiritually make room for people all the time. Like that's what we do. We make room. We make room for Christ. We make room for men. We make room for our spouse. We make room for our children. We make room like, and the joke was because I was telling somebody many years ago when my husband gets in the car and I have stuff in the seat, I just move everything, you know? And when I open up his car, he just doesn't even know, like, doesn't, what? You're fine. And he's a very, very good man. Like, this is a very, very good man. But he does not know innately in his like being, in his cells, how to make room.
Yeah,
And when I had a son and a daughter, I watched that too. I was like, oh, I see some of these innate parts of this son and this daughter that are physically pointing to their souls as these different, and they're so different from each other.
yeah,
And so, yeah, that's really beautiful, Stefani. Our bodies are kind of pointing us to
yeah,
that truth.
yeah. This is what
My
I,
husband does the exact same thing.
Were you going to say something too, Stefania?
Oh no, I was just saying this is what I tell so much to the women I coach that are struggling with infertility. There is a call to mother, to being a mother in every woman, particularly if you decided to get married and to build a family. There is a call, and that is for, again, married women, but also not. But how do you make it happen? Because the spiritual mothering, spiritual meaning that ability to go to people, or as you say, to make room, that can really fill up a lot of your of that sense of emptiness that you feel because you don't have biological children, just because of how we're made.
What's coming to mind is for me right now is Mother Teresa. Like the most mothering, like just enveloped people in her arms and she bossed people around, you know?
Oh,
And she ran a tight ship and um just like poured her heart and her body out, but never with a physical child, right? Never with a biological child, but with just her spiritual children. And man, just what a beautiful way to express her spiritual motherhood and give us all that example. So we're kind of like walking into the middle season now of this fertility, these years of fertility, whether and how it's expressed. I was going to share here that I, had cancer, and when you sign on the dotted line, that's you're starting chemo, and they're like, do you want to freeze your eggs? Yes or no? And just know, like, this is it for you. And we had two children, very, very young. We did all the work to like prepare our hearts for a big family, and then cancer slammed that door closed, and it was pretty heartbreaking. Um, but I had 8 years where I was watching women become pregnant and carry babies and hold babies. And I still remember when I was really sick, I didn't know if I was going to make it yet. At this point in 2019, I went to a conference, a Blessed Is She conference in Houston. And it was so beautiful. It was a spiritual conference. We're singing and we're praying and doing all these things together. But they had these rugs in the back for anyone with an infant. So these rugs in the back have big couches and spaces for all these moms with infants. And at the end, when we're all walking up for communion, these women are swaying and walking with their babies, or they're big and pregnant and have these big bellies. And I have that I'm gonna cry. Whew. That um that sight just imprinted in my body of like how beautiful the woman's body is and how much I longed to do that again. Even though at the beginning of my fertility, when I thought I had years and years and years, I was like, oh my goodness, like how is the church asking me to not, the church asks us to not use birth control. I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many years of fertility. How am I going to do this? This is such a burden. And then when it's over, um, it's just, it was just like, y'all help me out. I can't even get this story out. It's just, it really imprinted on me how beautiful and short this season really is.
Absolutely. I just experienced that as well in this pregnancy, Reagan, in the sense of I had the same thoughts of like this is so burdensome, doing this and avoiding and like discernment and all that. It's like wow, this is just there's so much here. And then in this pregnancy, I don't something changed. Maybe I matured. I don't know what it was. I genuinely, even after giving birth, it was one of those situations in which I was like, I can never take this for granted again. Like that was the most beautiful thing I've ever done in my life. And like as you're describing, like I wasn't there, but I can just like I am picturing like I don't know fuzzy carpets and big couches and like I can see I'm like I can see women and I can see babies and I can see all these things. Um, Wow, that's just so like thank you for sharing your heart, like that very intimate space because that's like my goodness, I can only imagine what that actually felt like. Like literally, I feel like I got a sliver of the emotion just coming from you telling the story, but like gosh, I can only imagine the actual power and impact that that had on you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I I I can I can share a little bit of my story that is in a very different way, but not far from your experience. Before having children, um, we had a really hard time. Like we have now 4 kids. I don't know, God has been so good because for the first 6 years of our marriage, we didn't, and we were open to life, and that was such a hard time. First of all, because we have our own plans. We know what we want, as you, Reagan, was sharing. You were preparing for a large family, and and then all of a sudden we realize, well, maybe this is not going to happen. And I think that's the time where you, at least, I was getting very upset, thinking, then what is all this for? Like, I don't need to have a menstrual cycle if I can have kids. I don't need to have a menstrual cycle. This is all like so annoying. And it's like a continual reminder of something that I cannot have. This is what's my thought then. And it was so hard, so hard. And as I see it now, I will say it in a positive way. Yes, that is a continual reminder of what you're made for. And uh, yeah, it may not happen like in a biological way, but that's a reminder of who you're meant to be, like to be a complete as a woman. I believe, and fulfilled as a woman, I believe you need to express that kind of call to motherhood in however way, whatever way.
What keeps coming to my mind in both the first part of this conversation and now again, and I don't know how to address it, so I'm just going to open it up. What keeps coming to my mind is people laughing at this conversation because they're so hardened. Like you just said, I don't need the menstrual. I don't need a menstrual cycle if I can't have kids. This is stupid, God. Like, come on. Like this, why did you do this? Why did you design me this way if it's just going to hurt? Like, if, symptoms, and then no children. Or symptoms, and children that I didn't necessarily ask you for. Thank you. And it's like, I just see we are a very hardened society, and I've heard that. I think even I have a lot of family members who, if they heard this conversation, they would openly laugh at me and be like, well, that's you. That's not me. I hate my period. I hate this. I hate, and I don't know what to do with that. I just want to say, yes, if that's you, that's okay. Like you're feeling something, some sort of emotion at your body and the way you were designed. But isn't that what we're trying to talk about here? Like reframing the anger and the emotion and the hardness and the why did you design me this way, God? Obviously this is stupid. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I'm thinking, I can feel what you're saying, like people saying like this doesn't make any sense. Who cares? Um, but I would say, does that, like, I don't know if they perceive, um, okay, I want to say it this way. We are not on in this world. We're not meant to be on this world for our pleasure. Um, we are m- meant to find meaning, to get to know God, so that we can be with Him forever. And that is my path. And so I think either you think it this way, and so also menstrual cycles when you don't have children have a meaning, or then like if you're out of this pathway, you kind of you can only be angry. You can only be annoyed. And honestly, I would invite someone to try to see it in a different way, because from that space where they are, yes, I understand it's only annoying.
I mean, it is annoying sometimes, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and that's
think
okay to call it that.
But again,
I think it goes.
Sorry,
Oh,
Audie.
go ahead.
go,
Sorry.
go, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think it goes even deeper than that because I know that like I've had that mentality about my cycle before. I've had that mentality about a handful of other things. Chronic illness, God, why are you doing this to me? A bad breakup, God, why are you doing this to me? My entire trauma situation, God, why are you doing this to me? And for me, in the coach's aspect, it goes back to a victor versus victim mentality. Like, I can either sit here and suffer and think, oh, woe is me, or I can pick up my bootstraps and I can figure out, okay, why, like, especially like coming from, so there were points in my cycle where I could not get out of bed. It hurt to get out of bed. I would sit in the shower for an hour with scalding hot water all over my body, trying to basically release my muscles enough where I could walk about my day, go to the cabinet to get the ibuprofen, shove four of them down at a time, and then just make it through the day. And I let that cause so many issues for me and so much anger and so much frustration until I realized I'm letting this whole thing control me. I'm letting this whole situation control me. And so I like in my mind, it's like we can either give this power to ruin us. Like we can give these like negative pieces of it like enough weight to crush us, or we can change our mindset and we can embrace that instead and do just like what you're saying, Stefania, like why am I like approach it with curiosity. Why do I have this period? What in the world is this for? If I'm not having kids, if I don't want kids, if I'm struggling with infertility and I can't reach it, then what's the point? And it's I think inviting us to to go in and discover that individually for each of us. I don't know. That's where I'm taking it. And that's what I see that having gone through that aspect, that mindset of it myself, and also being a coach, that's what I hear.
And
Well,
to
go
that,
ahead.
Audie, that is very, very deep and very powerful, I think, the mindset change, the embracing. But I would also add to that, I think we have been taught to believe that however it is, painful, very disruptive, however that may be, you just have to deal with it and just keep, like, that's how it is. And I would say, no, it's not necessarily how it's meant to be. Like, there are things that may change. There are approaches to, um, healing the menstrual cycle that are very helpful in making those symptoms a little milder. And so
Yeah.
that, again, we can live. It's true that we're not in this world for pleasure, but we don't necessarily have to suffer
Unnecessarily.
unnecessarily. There are
Yeah.
things we can do to improve that. And
Amen. Preach it, sisters.
Well, and that's, I think, Audie, that's where the mindset help meant instead of playing the victim, I'm going to do some research. Instead of playing the victim and saying, my doctor didn't help me, I'm going to fire my doctor and find somebody else that will help me. I mean, that's for me, I went through 8 doctors. And then some quacks and some crazy different versions of help, and we went through so much money and time to get help in my health and my husband's health. Um, but yeah, saying, wait, God, is this a cross you're asking me to bear, or is this some unnecessary suffering because of a circumstance, like something that happened to me, something we did, or like your childhood experiences. Like, not all of this is like God handing me this is your cross to bear, Regan. No, some of this is just circumstantial. And
Yeah.
I could totally see how I can sit in that victimhood and say, this is just God punishing me, or this is just God not helping me, or not answering my prayers. Or flip that, reframe that, and say, I'm going to do some research and see who can help me. Because God loves me. God is not planning for me to just stay like this forever, is He? Maybe, but let's take some moves
Yeah.
and see if maybe something's different.
Yeah. Yeah. And that
It's
empowerment makes a difference.
such a
Like
difference.
choosing to do something different to for yourself, not to let like anyone
Yeah.
tell you,
And
oh, that's
and
okay,
even
oh,
Jesus did that. Like,
that's bad for.
like he's in the I'm so sorry. I think we're talking over each other. I apologize, Stefania. I was just gonna say Jesus had done that, like in the garden when he's like, Lord, like, are you sure? Are you sure this is what it is? And I think that that gives me a call. Like, like even if it's something so short, like ask anyway.
Yeah.
Just ask him. Be like, are we sure that this is what I need to hand? Like, is this what I need to do? And I think that he'd be okay with that. I think that
Oh,
he's
yeah.
very much wants us to make sure that we question and we're not just traipsing down a path that we assume that God wants us to traipse down.
Well, and that's what was coming to my mind was parts work of going, okay, Audie, I'm picturing you like hurting. You're talking about that like hot water on your body to try to loosen it up. And it's almost like the flu. Like that's like the flu for some people. You were just having it regularly of like
Every week
crippling,
or
aching
every
pain.
month.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, I know that having a strong mindset around it is helpful in reframing from victim to victory. But also to do that, part of that is to really go in and say, I see you, Audie. I see the part of you that's in the shower, huddled over in pain, and I'm going to validate that and say and comfort that person. And when you're talking about Jesus calling out to the Father saying, let this cup pass, I'm like, Jesus is a person. He's not just like, sin management, like Sister Miriam, I think, said. Jesus isn't sin management program. He's a person. And he wants to hold you there. He wants to say, oh my goodness, let me put my hands on your back. Let me comfort you. Let me bring you something. Like, I feel what you feel, Audie. And to really go in and nurture and have compassion on the parts of you that are hurting so that you can stand up tall and take some action and go research rather than just like saying, get up, lazy, get tough, woman. Like we can both see and nurture the part of you that's hurting so that you can pull up those bootstraps.
Yeah, I love that, Regan.
So the same reframing process, I'm assuming, is going to happen again for me when I start going through perimenopause, menopause. Um, let's kind of start off this last section here and look at kind of what have you guys been taught? Where are you on this journey? Stefania, please tell me if you're already experiencing some of this. What have you guys been taught? What are you expecting? What's the culture taught you? What's your family taught you about post-fertility years?
I'll go. I would say that from a personal point of view, like in relationships, I hear very little talk about this. I have a couple of friends that like come to me and tell me about it because they know the work I do, but it's as if it was silenced, I would say. So there's not much talk about it. And I wonder if women feel some shame or some like that it's such a big change that they they don't feel themselves anymore, and so they prefer to keep it like very personal. Um, but I think it also feels very lonely to go through it without having like a support team, whether it's good friends or a healthcare professional that helps you. I what I can say from personal experience, I'm not there yet, but I do notice already that something is shifting, like in my mindset, um, around cycles, like that these cycles are useless, if we want to use that word. That is such a bad word. Like I'm not going to use these cycles for anything, and um, and that I don't have all the uh, big emotional shifts that I used to have when I was younger. So these big changes in how you feel in the pre-ovulatory phase and in the post-ovulatory phase, that is not there anymore as much. And in a way, I will say it feels a little sad. Like it's making me little by little realize that I'm kind of saying goodbye to that time uh, of life and to youth. And it's not really a nice feeling, I will say. Um, so um, I think when I think of perimenopause or menopausal women, I I think there's a big struggle there between these feelings that I'm sure are very normal and all the symptoms they are experiencing. Um, so like it's a very it's not that nothing is happening. There's a lot happening, uh, but it's like um, not for something like in the childbearing years where okay, this is for something where you would see what it is for having children. Here, it's totally different.
Thank you for
Think so?
sharing that. And that's so vulnerable, Stefania. When we talked about this last week, we kind of had a little meeting to talk about what we were going to record.
Hmm.
And when you were describing uh, menopause, I just said like that makes me sad. I'm just gonna be honest, that makes me sad. And you just said it too, like that makes me sad. And I'm sure everybody's feeling differently, but some people might be so excited. I don't know, you know. But to be
Possibly.
able to just feel whatever we feel about it, it's already going to have its own symptoms and signs and changes. And then we're going to have emotions about those symptoms and signs and changes. And if maybe we could just accept that that's how we feel about it versus suppressing those or pretending they don't, or hiding them, like
Yeah.
we hid some little girls like hide whenever they start their cycle, and then us as women we're hiding when we lose our cycle.
Yeah.
And it's like the same thread of shame is just walking us through this whole season instead of this beautiful gift. And I don't know how that gift unfolds on the other side. I don't know.
Yeah. That that is I wonder too, like how do you feel after, like once you are menopausal, because many things change again. Your body changes completely. And in a way, I was thinking the other day about our talk, and in my mind, I saw this like comparison that, like, when you think of your menstrual cycle, that parable of menses and then the pre-ovulatory phase and then ovulation and then the post-ovulatory phase, all that, if you see it in a lifetime, that is very similar to from when you start your cycle through your reproductive years and then through menopause. Like there is, to me, there is a sort of correspondence of times. Like, um, when you start having your cycle, and that's as if you think of a menstrual cycle, that's a little bit of the beginning. And then during your reproductive years, that's the time, like around ovulation, it's exciting. It's something new is happening, and that's how you feel a little bit around ovulation. You feel all the positive energy coming out. And then it's kind of a slowing down. You may have symptoms, and you have more of that tendency in the post-ovulatory phase to wanting to nest, to stay calm, to not necessarily socialize as much. And I kind of see it as something that happens more towards your menopause years, not necessarily. But I think there is a similarity, as if like everything, our how we are every day and how um, our life unravels, they're kind of interconnected. Um, and and so I imagine there's a lot of meaning also in those menopausal years, um, where if you have learned how to be a woman, you keep doing that with a lot more wisdom.
Audie, do you have anything to add?
I was thinking as I was listening to you both, I think that like to the way I've seen menopause be talked about, the way I've experienced it myself by being around, like I think I was trying to count everybody that I'd been around. I want to say I've been very close to maybe 6 or 7 women as they were going through menopause as I was growing up. Um, which I think is really a really interesting thing because we could talk about menopause all day long. We could talk about all the hot flashes, we could talk about the symptoms, we could talk about everything. But again, we couldn't talk about periods. And that's just ironic to me. Um, but I think it's interesting because menopause has been I've seen two things. One is like, oh, this is absolute hell. And two is that how do I describe it? It's that but we run away from it. Like this is hell and we're trying to get away from it as fast as we can. Like we are trying to like get through the hot flash. We are trying to figure out some way to balance the hormones. We are trying to like it's like we're rushing, 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 rushing through it. That's all I've ever seen. And so that's kind of what I had assumed what it was going to be like going forward like that for me. And like those are red flags right in my head. It's like, well, we don't want to constantly live in hell and we don't want to constantly run away from something either. And so that for me is like an idea of like, okay, maybe we approach this differently. um but for the most part, like that's what I've seen, that's what I've experienced. And I just, as Stefania is talking about, like the types of changes, and like I just love that blooming aspect you used earlier. Like, what are we blooming into as we move into menopause? Like, what are we blooming in? What does life look like when we feel like we're like we have bloomed? And then what's the next stage in the flower's life? It's to die. But we're not dying. Like what does that look like? What does that mean? And I just it's exciting, I think, if anything, for me now. Um, Maybe because I'm not going through it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause it's easy to say when we're not there, right?
Right?
Yeah, I think there is a part of realism, like
Give her to me.
every other stage of our reproductive life. It's never easy, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
There it's never easy. So that part is not easy either for specific reasons. And again, there are women that have a lot of symptoms, and there's a lot of empathy that needs to be given to them, together with healing strategies, because again, you don't necessarily have to suffer so much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, also seeing the positive sides. There are positives, I believe. There are things that change, but change doesn't necessarily mean bad. So,
Yeah, and two things are coming up. One, the song about just seasons, right? We're learning our seasons. We're getting realizing that when we start our cycle, it's seasonal every month. And then but also this life season of we're shifting into this fertility phase, we're shifting into this menopausal phase. But then also the like, would it be so bad for us to call menopause like the death of our fertility years? Because we're almost like, no, 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 we want to use words like blooming, you know? And I do too. I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to not bloom. I don't want to not bloom. Please don't make me do that. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Like, I had to shave my head and pull 3 teeth to overcome cancer. And it was a death. Like, it was a death of my beauty. And when I experienced that death, I grew spiritually like crazy. I'm gonna cry again, you guys. Woo!
Let it out.
So much growth. And we know biblically, like, the seed has to die to produce the plant that which produces the fruit. Like, to be a fruitful people, we have to be okay with this constant pruning of ourselves, this death of ourselves. And I wonder how we can hold on to that biblical truth during menopause to say, yes, maybe this is a death. Maybe I do need to grieve this a little bit instead of running and getting hormones put in my arm and running around and trying to lose this weight and running, which, like, I'm there right now too. Like, I'm experiencing postpartum. So I'm experiencing that suffering here. And Audie, we're talking about the acne and the postpartum belly and all the things. Like, it's not fun here either, guys. It's not a party in the fertility phase.
Never easy.
But yeah, it's not. But I wonder how, if we could just hold on to that biblical truth that it is fruitful spiritually. There are things to learn here, and it's actually more important and more satisfying than just the exterior beauty or exterior blooming phase.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Regan, for this.
That's so beautiful.
So beautiful. Yeah.
Is that a good place to end it?
That's a great place to end it. I just let's take a moment and just thank you for sharing and for crying and for just giving us that, because that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Like, we have to die. Like, there is part of us that dies so we can grow. Wow.
Well, I guess if any of our listeners have already gone through menopause, you can go to our website and just chew us out and tell us how bad we did this. And
Please.
please, like, seriously though,
We'd
we
love
fail
to
forward
hear.
fast, right?
Yeah.
It can be our
We
humble
want the
highlight
angry
next.
emails.
Yes, you can go to risingtidefellowship.com, click on podcast, scroll down to the bottom, and there's a spot there called Fellowship Forum. And you can ask questions or enlighten us there. If you're a part of our community at risingtidefellowship.com, you can just hang out with us and tell us all about it. We'll be there on Thursday for community coaching hours, and you can give me a nice lecture on how we got this totally wrong. But thank you, guys. Thank you,
Stefania, where can we
Stefania.
find you?
You can find me in the Rising Tide Fellowship or on my website, healthynewway.com. And I have also an Instagram account, so Healthy New Way again. So you can find me either place. And if you have questions, again, would love to answer them.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Weekly Fellowship Podcast. If you'd like to work with Regan, you can learn more about her on her website at reganclementcoaching.com.
And if you'd like to work with Audie, you can find her at audiegonzalez.com. Season 3 is sponsored by the Rising Tide Fellowship, an online community for faith-filled women looking for growth. You can learn more about our mission at risingtidefellowship.com.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.